God.
Go down the engine room, dude. We're taking on water.
Oh my God, dude.
Hey, get it to port.
A very well-known fisherman from Deadliest Catch recently lost his life in a terrible accident out at sea, where it is known that danger is always lurking. The crew members, from deckhands to captains, often suffer injuries like broken hands, busted noses, or sprained ankles. What drives these men to keep sailing despite the constant danger is still unknown.
Oh! Look at that fly!
There's crab.
Could it be the thrill, the challenge, or is there something deeper that no one knows? Let us explore the stories of these fearless men that might just uncover hidden truths about this dangerous industry. A record-breaking catch in rough waters. Under the constant rain, the crew kept pushing through their work. They had a family event coming up, which was something everyone was looking forward to, keeping their spirits up. Captain Jake, hopeful as ever, mentioned they were trying out a new spot further northwest than they usually went. He was quite optimistic about catching a good number of crabs, maybe between 200 and 300, and even whispered a quick prayer for a bit of extra luck. When they finally pulled up their nets, the catch was unbelievable. Way more than they had imagined. Captain Jake was stunned, saying he'd never seen anything like this in his many years at sea, especially since they got such a haul in just 8 hours. The sheer size of the catch gave them all a bit of relief from the chilly weather, and it felt like all their hard work was paying off. If the crabs were big enough, they could make quite a bit of money off this single haul. Even if the crabs turned out smaller, just the number they caught was a success on its own.
I'll show you how a long line string works. I'm fishing in the mountains, right? So normally, when you're long lining, normally I'd set a buoy system right here, and it would run down to the first pot. And that would run down to the second, and that would run down to the third, and so on, to the very end, to the next buoy system.
They ended up catching 435 crabs, shattering Captain Jake's initial expectations. He was over the moon, claiming it was the first time in his career he'd seen such a quantity in such a short time. The crew was ecstatic, their cheers filling the boat. The saga. It was clear they hadn't just broken their previous record, they had absolutely crushed it. The next morning, as the crew was calming down from their exhausting night, they couldn't settle for long. They soon faced a new challenge. The ocean turned rough, and the saga was taking a beating from the strong waves. One crew member noticed the danger brewing and quickly warned to Captain Jake. The captain acted swiftly, calling everyone inside to safety. He confessed that he had forgotten to mention something important. In such turbulent waters, their anchor might not hold. This was a serious risk, as it could lead to the boat capsizing. At that moment, every decision was crucial. The saga was at risk of a major disaster, losing not just its catch, but potentially its crew and the vessel itself. Captain Jake urgently instructed his crew to brace themselves and stay alert. He explained that if they didn't keep the anchor line tight, the winch might snap and get lost in the ocean. Frustrated yet determined, he realized other ships might be watching their ordeal and possibly questioning their decision to attempt securing the anchor in such bad weather. Captain Jake knew he had lost anchors in similar situations before, but he emphasized that his top priority was keeping his crew safe.
Starts getting sketchy, cut the lines. You don't need an order for that. If you feel unsafe and you gotta cut.
He was committed to admitting his past mistakes and expected his crew to take responsibility for their actions as well, showing his commitment to their safety and his leadership. Captain Jake then needed to handle the anchor cable carefully while they worked to pull it in. He called a crew member over to help figure out which direction the cable was running, as managing it correctly was critical. Despite their success in fishing earlier, the crew was now facing criticism for their oversight in this tricky situation. In a moment of high tension, Jake shouted at a crew member to keep away from the winch, warning of the danger and the serious injuries that could occur if it came loose. Amid this hectic moment, Jake appeared confused, openly wondering what had gone wrong and why the winch wasn't operating as expected. If the anchor were to snap, the deckhand nearby could be thrown overboard. Jake continued to remind everyone to stay clear of the path of the winch. Fortunately, they managed to handle the situation without any accidents, and with the storm still raging, their next step was to navigate towards port, though Jake didn't seem too concerned about moving through the rough sea conditions. Just as the crew started to relax, the sea threw a new challenge at them, testing their quick thinking and resolve. A captain's quick thinking. Suddenly, when two boats collided, it sent a wave of panic through everyone on board. It's always frustrating when you can see a problem unfolding and feel helpless to stop it. The captain of the Wizard, despite barking orders, knew his commands had little effect but quickly took action to control the situation. Since they were at sea and couldn't directly confront the other captain, his main concern was to steer his ship safely to port. This episode is a reminder that getting caught up in confrontations at sea is pointless. The captain was clearly upset by the incident, warning his crew that he expected discipline and caution during this tense time. Quickly, the captain gave a series of commands. He had his crew check the front of the boat, then told them to power up and make a sharp left turn. He pushed them to go full speed ahead. After executing these commands, the boat jolted significantly. The captain was unsure how badly they were hit, but tried to remain hopeful despite the confusion. Following the crash, the captain of the Wizard reached out to the opposing captain via the intercom, clearly upset. He accused the other captain of careless steering, questioning their decision-making and asking if they had an engine failure. He demanded an explanation for why their boat had crossed his path when he was only moving at a moderate pace. The other captain defensively explained that he had tried to reverse.
Right here is the freeway for American shipping, with all these container ships backing up.
But the throttle controls had failed, adding to the chaos of the moment. The captain of the Wizard, still reeling from the intense encounter, proposed that both he and the other ship's captain should assess their vessels for any damage and exchange good wishes. He also planned to inspect his own ship for any issues that might have arisen from the collision. Interestingly, he didn't offer an apology for the incident, hinting at further discussions once they reached port. Shaken by the narrow escape, he remarked that they had all experienced enough yelling for a lifetime, a feeling likely echoed by the entire crew. Soon after, a deckhand stepped up, possibly to talk about safety measures or to help ease the tension among the crew. He highlighted an essential part of the ship known as the collision bulkhead. He explained that this compartment is designed to fill with water in emergencies like the one they had just encountered, which helps prevent the ship from taking on too much water and possibly sinking. If the damage had been more severe, the captain might have found himself urgently communicating over the radio out of concern. Thankfully, the initial inspection showed the damage was less than feared, which quickly calmed everyone's nerves. The captain went on to describe the scary event they had just gone through. He explained that their anchor had unexpectedly caught on something underwater, causing their ship to veer off its intended path and narrowly avoid colliding directly with another ship. He stressed how critical the situation had been. If the collision had been head-on, they could have severely damaged the other vessel. Even though the other boat did suffer considerable damage, the captain realized that pointing fingers at his crew wouldn't resolve anything, and acknowledging this helped reduce some of the stress. With the storm still raging, their successful fishing trip quickly turned into a struggle to ensure everyone's safety. Following the incident, the atmosphere on the Saga was chillier than the icy Bering Sea itself. For Captain Jake, navigating through severe weather at night,
That's how you do it right there. I'm proud of her right now. She's got guts, she's got grit, and she's determined. But this will be a tough one to haul.
was proving to be one of his toughest challenges. He continually issued warnings to Jacob, a deckhand, to remain vigilant. Jacob, clearly shaken, assured him that he could handle the impact of the massive waves. They were strong but manageable. It seemed the sea was giving them a stern reminder of its immense power and the need for constant caution. A huge wave then crashed onto the deck, soaking everyone with freezing seawater and sending shivers down their spines. Captain Jake quickly apologized, admitting he hadn't foreseen the wave's impact. Jacob provided more details about the incident, saying that water had surged through the deck's gaps and the coiler, a machine used to wind ropes, had unexpectedly shifted towards him. Reacting quickly, he crouched down while managing his hook line. Jacob felt fortunate, considering it almost miraculous that the coiler absorbed most of the wave's force. He narrowly avoided being swept overboard and was sure he'd be recounting this dramatic episode for a long time. The rough weather had just begun to calm when a sudden crash brought fresh tension and urgency to the crew. Wild Bill's tough night on the high seas. Captain Jake, frustrated by the unpredictability of the sea, emphasized the need for continuous alertness on deck. He voiced concerns about their ability to safely continue their fishing efforts under the worsening weather conditions. He highlighted the dangers posed by such large and quick-moving waves, describing their force as similar to a strong punch, capable of reaching speeds up to 20 miles per hour. Deciding to stop the hauling operations, he humorously referred to the decision as a Bruce Lee move, suggesting a quick and decisive action. Convinced that the crew wouldn't be able to withstand another such powerful wave, Jake decided it was best to halt their efforts for the night. Captain Wild Bill, who leads his team on the Summer Bay, always keeps them motivated to push forward, even under tough conditions where others might back down, likely driven by their strong team spirit. This time they were setting up for a night of fishing in very deep waters. Wild Bill had warned his crew earlier about the expected rough conditions and urged them to be extra careful. He even decided to set their crab pots 3 fathoms deeper than usual to improve their chances. The weather deteriorated rapidly, becoming severe within just 45 minutes. While some might feel disheartened, Wild Bill spotted an opportunity in a clear area of the ocean, hoping it would enhance their catch for the evening. Handling the crab pots is especially challenging near the rail, where the sea is most unforgiving. It was Spencer's turn to manage this difficult position. Wild Bill, always concerned for his crew's well-being, made sure to remind Spencer to be cautious before he started his task. The currents were exceptionally strong, making it difficult for Spencer to secure the buoy. Nevertheless, he persisted, motivated by the prospect of a large haul. Spencer seemed to share Wild Bill's optimism, believing that their hard work and positive mindset would help them avert any major issues. When they finally brought up the pots, the crew was overjoyed. They had caught 223 crabs, marking a significant victory.
Now I should be drifting down the buoy line itself. I have to be very careful how I stay on top of this and drag. I don't just want to take it out of gear, let the wind and waves take me, and then hope it hooks up.
One crew member was particularly elated, confident that the rest of the night would continue to bring good luck. With other boats having left for the night, it felt like they had the entire ocean to themselves. However, the joy was short-lived. As they grappled with the equipment due to the strong currents, an unexpected mishap occurred, and suddenly a man was overboard. This threw everyone into a state of panic. The sea was rough and visibility was low, making the situation extremely perilous. Wild Bill acted swiftly, directing his crew to rescue the man in the water. It seemed like an eternity, but they managed to get Spencer back on board, safe and sound. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. For Wild Bill, those moments felt like some of the longest of his life, as the thought of losing a crew member was agonizing. He was deeply relieved and grateful that Spencer was all right after such a terrifying ordeal. On a regular day, as the Summer Bay was pulling into the dock, a surprising accident happened that not only raised a lot of concerns but also threatened to mess up the whole season's work. Nick, a well-experienced deckhand and a key player, especially with a lot of newbies on board, found himself right in the middle of this mess. As they got close to the dock, Nick, pumped up and ready to get back to work, rushed to get started. But in his rush, he tripped and took a bad fall, badly twisting his ankle. This wasn't just a minor hurt, it was a serious issue that could keep him out for the rest of the season. A big problem since the ship, skippered by the respected Captain Wild Bill, was already low on experienced hands and really needed old pros like Nick. Even as the crew celebrated their big catch, an unexpected accident on deck reminded them of the sea's harsh reality. A setback for the Summer Bay. This problem was immediately reported to Captain Wild Bill through the ship's radio by another crew member who called in to update him on what was happening and to make sure operations were still running. At that time, the crew was actively hauling up crab pots, a task that needed everyone to focus and work together. The talk quickly shifted to Nick's accident, with the crew member expressing worry about whether Nick could keep working under the tough, intense conditions that come with their fishing trips. As Nick lay there in pain, he described a sharp, intense pain shooting up from his ankle to his knee, showing just how bad the injury was. This wasn't just a small twist, it was intense, and the impact was immediate. In the demanding world of crab fishing, where every hand on deck is crucial, this was a major setback. Thinking about what to do next, another crew member talked about maybe needing to cut off Nick's boot to better treat his ankle. The plan was to put ice on the swollen area and watch how it went overnight. There was also talk about possibly needing a doctor, although it was unclear if they could get one right away because of where they were and the ship's tight schedule. Handling injuries at sea is tricky, made even harder by the few medical supplies they had on board.
I don't know if I'm even going to be able to find that set of buoys. Because sometimes you can't.
Nick's condition was likely to get worse by the next day, adding to the already tough working conditions for the crew. Despite his pain, Nick knew the trouble his injury was causing and apologized to his teammates, asking for a moment to sit and rest. His teammates responded with understanding and reassured him, promising to secure his ankle well and set up a medical check for the next morning. This check would likely include an X-ray to fully figure out how much damage was done to Nick's ankle. Captain Wild Bill, deeply concerned for one of his main crew members, was visibly upset by the incident. To him, Nick was more than just a deckhand. He was often thought of as the backbone of the team out on the waters. This accident really showed how important Nick was to the crew and to the captain himself. It highlighted his role not just as a worker, but as a crucial part of the human element that kept the Summer Bay running smoothly. As the crew dealt with the immediate aftermath of the accident, they rallied around Nick, showing the strong connections among team members who depend on each other for safety and success in such a risky job. The accident, while unfortunate, was a stark reminder of the dangers associated with their profession and the need for carefulness and precaution in every action they take on the ship. In the hours that followed, the crew likely talked about how they could prevent such accidents in the future and what measures could be taken to respond faster and more effectively to similar emergencies in the future.
Headed toward the suicide set right now. There's only one end with bags on it. If something happens to this end, I'll lose $100,000 in product, lost revenue, and the pots themselves.
This situation strengthened their commitment to each other's safety and well-being. Nick's injury, while a personal misfortune, brought up broader themes that are important to the life of a crab fisherman: the unpredictable nature of the sea, the physical demands of the job, and the crucial role of experience and teamwork in facing these challenges. As Nick recovered, this incident would not only serve as a personal reminder of the risks involved in his profession, but also as a proof of his value within the team. Once he was healed, he might even use this experience in discussions about his role and pay, recognizing his important role and possibly pushing for a well-deserved raise. Harley was really focused on steering his ship and was particularly concerned about the movements of another nearby vessel. He kept pushing his crew to work faster. Meanwhile, Wild Bill, observing from a distance, started to question Harley's choices and grew worried about the potential for a collision. Bill began to think about what emergency actions to take, including the readiness of a crash bag, a key safety tool, and he ensured one was readily accessible. Having seen Harley's handling of his boat in the past, Bill felt it was important to have a different crew member handle an important task on his own ship, pointing to safety concerns based on what he had observed before. Is the thrill of the catch worth risking it all? Or are these fishermen pushing their limits too far? Share your thoughts and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.